Welcome back, everybody, into Bill's Chat. I am Josh McCarty. With me, as always, is Luca. Luca, for the first time in the 2025 season, we have a loss to discuss. How are you doing?
Tired. I am very, very tired for anyone that's not aware or can't even tell because of how bright it is comparatively to our normal recording sessions. It is Monday at noon as we're recording this right now, or just daytime locally for me. And I was at the game and got home and finally was able to get to bed around 2. I will also say a buddy was in town to go to the game and he had to be at the airport for a 7 a.m. flight. So that was also a nice little caveat in the day. But overall, based on a long day yesterday that ended with, as you put it, and as everyone is understanding right now, in a loss, a disappointing loss, and then dealing with all of the fun that anyone knows that goes to a game of getting home. And, if you live in the North Towns and you got to get home from the South Towns after a game, it's tough. A little tired, a little beat, a little defeated myself, but also I'm in a strange place, Josh, and we'll get into it more, where I'm not as pissed off as I feel like I should be after a loss like this. And I think there's just a lot of layers as to why. But yeah, overall, just tired and a little bit of defeat after a very disappointing effort from the Bills last night against the Patriots.
I think what we're going to get into tonight is it's human nature after the first loss your team experiences, whether it's week 1, week 4, week 5, whenever. It feels like the sky is falling. It's like you have to remind yourself how to handle a loss. And then as the season goes in, they start to sting a little less. But some of the things that we saw last night were concerns that we saw in the wins, whether it's wide receivers getting open against man coverage, whether it's defensive backs just being absolutely too slow footed to cover in 2025 NFL, linebackers not filling in run support, things like that we saw creep up even against a team like the Saints, against a team like the Dolphins, obviously week 1 against the Ravens. Those things, creeped in, and it got to a point where the Bills ended up losing a game last night. But then we also have to compartmentalize. Hey, they're 4-1. The Ravens look like they could be toast. The Chiefs are still off to a slower start. So where does the truth lie? The sky is probably not falling, but there are some things to be concerned about. I do want to say this before I kick it back to Luca. The Bills obviously lost. I recognize there's probably a large contingent of Bills fans that are also crossover Yankee fans, and it was a tough weekend for them. The one thing I will say, Luca, no matter how bad of a weekend you had, it wasn't as bad as Mark Sanchez's weekend. That is my one point of optimism for you, because holy cow, that guy has a weekend for the ages. I guess we got to do this. Luca, when the final buzzer went off and the Josh Allen 10-yard pass
Oh,
to Joshua Palmer, I have no idea what they were trying to accomplish on that play. At least it was a completion. And the teams are crossing the field and shaking hands. What's going through your mind?
uh, disbelief, but also not shocked, all wrapped in one. And that's kind of stemming off of what I even said earlier on or leading into this pod was, it's there's a level of defeat and disappointment and things like that with that game. But at the same time, like the game built in a way from a Bills fan perspective that it didn't have that normal feel. And we've been having this kind of uneasiness for weeks now that this game absolutely highlighted the lack of punch that the Bills really have been able to show this season, especially since that second half against the Ravens week 1. Or I mean, you could put it in there against the Jets game. That one just was a runaway real quick that I wouldn't even define that as a punch. It was just, the Bills outclassed the Jets. But going into the last few weeks now, the last couple at least, with the Dolphins and the Saints, there was this little bit of uneasiness with the inability to be dominant and to control as much as you feel like a Josh Allen led Super Bowl contending Bills team should be able to do. And on one hand, it did feel like the defense still couldn't make the big plays when they really you would like to see them. But at the same time, they weren't exactly the absolute fault reason for what was going on. Whereas the last couple weeks, that's what it felt like. The Saints were still in that game because the defense just couldn't do anything correctly and get stops where you needed them. And or the Dolphins game, sorry, similar, inability to stop the run. Just they're allowing the opponent and their offense to truly dictate the tempo and control the ball, keep the Bills offense off the field, yada, yada, yada. And this game, the defense did everything that you would like them to do as a mediocre, middle of the road defense. Create a couple stops in there. You had 4 sacks. People are I still see a little bit of complaints about the pass rush, but ultimately it's like you have a pass rush that was able to create 4 sacks, actually get Drake May moving and need to improvise and do things, to last ditch efforts to create plays. And that's where the problems led for that defense a little bit. And we'll get into that later. But this loss really felt like one where the offense early on and then throughout the entire game was just going through motions, just doing things. And it's not even just take what they're giving you. It's almost like, well, they actually don't have the ability to create anything otherwise. They don't have, there's something about it where it's like, even with Josh Allen, why does this offense just look so stale, so just lackluster, inefficient? Just it's a struggle moving the chains half the time. And the only time you're really getting chunk plays and moving the chains are Allen either extending it a little bit with his legs to then get the passing game opened up because you're just in scramble drill mode, and or once in a while you have Kincaid just opened up on a 15-yard out or whatever it is, because he's able to create a little bit of separation there, just one guy once in a while doing that. And when the as you put it, when the zeros hit the clock and the game was over, it was just one of those ones where you're disappointed in the loss. And it's like, hats off to the Patriots. They deserved the win. They absolutely, but it's not because they actually, the Patriots felt like a team that they understood what they are. They played within their means. They did all the little things correctly. They were very efficient on offense, even with a ground game that wasn't able to truly get off the ground running. Laugh. But Drake May is doing everything you're asking him to do. He made a couple plays happen, especially, late in the game. You had that one where he's scrambling out. It seemed like, I believe it was Bosa was in the backfield, almost had him dead to rights. He's still moving out to his right, finds Diggs, who is lucky enough to just be kind of underneath. And Benford's playing a deeper assignment. So in that outside boundary area, while he's able to get out, there's a little bit more open space. It's only Shaq Thompson there flying out from the middle of the field. Diggs is able to move upfield. So, that was a big play. Drake May was making a couple of those plays. That's really good, but it's not like Drake May played incredible. I wouldn't say that Drake May was playing like, a bona fide MVP out there. He was doing a great job within the means of what he was asked to do. And he was very efficient doing it. I mean, the second half alone was impressive from Drake May in the sense of just being efficient, moving the chains, operating the offense, and doing what he needed to do. So that conversely, the Bills were not doing any of that. I mean, it was an absolute struggle, and zeros hit the clock and the game's over and there's no shock to it. It's like, yeah, the Bills turned it over 3 times. I mean, you heard Josh Allen say it. You heard McDermott say it after the game. The Bills turned it over 3 times, and I think it was twice in their red zone. You can't, maybe it was once, but regardless, you can't do those things and expect to win games. And even then, with a guy like Josh Allen, you're still in it. And with a defense at least able to do a couple things good for you, you're in it. But in no world should an NFL team, no matter how good, lose the turnover battle by multiple turnovers, turn it over 3 times in their own right, and have any expectation to get out there with a win. So they got what was coming to them, essentially. You're playing with fire. You're just going through the motions. You're struggling to be overly productive and actually have a good punch to your offense. And finally, the Patriots essentially just exposed you for what was going on because they're a good enough team to do it. They're not the Dolphins. They're not the Saints, probably bottom 5, bottom 8 teams in the NFL. They are a team that in the preseason, even we acknowledged would potentially be a playoff team. They have a couple things going their way when it comes to a promising upwards quarterback in his second year, a much better individual at head coach being Mike Vrabel, who also inadvertently owns Sean McDermott. And then on top of it all, you're on a 4th place schedule. So you're going to have a lot of lower class teams to play against that should be able to build your confidence, stack up wins, so on and so forth. So I think this loss for the Bills and when it happened, it was a disappointment, but not surprising loss that as I left that stadium, I wasn't even like pissed off. It was just, yeah, like that is the shit that happens in the NFL when you don't bring your best effort and you're sluggish and you're sloppy and you're doing things not the right way. You should expect to lose games in such a manner that they did. So just overall, it was a disaster class in the sense of just disappointment and inefficiency that didn't surprise me one bit when the clock hit zero.
When you see a game like this play out, it's very easy to say, like, if the Bills don't turn the ball over 3 times, they probably win the game. And that certainly is a lesson you can take from it, and history, at least the last year and a half, shows us that the Bills are not going to lose the turnover battle very often, is one of the strengths of this team, although the history of the NFL shows that you can't really count on turnovers as being your calling card, and that's where I struggle a little bit with this iteration of the Bills is, yes, they've shown a skill to not turn the ball over, but that ball is shaped funny, it bounces funny, and sometimes it's just not your night. And last night it wasn't, but it was still very much there for the taking for the Bills. My thing is the Bills today on October 6th are a 4-1 football team, and that feels right. I don't feel cheated by the loss last night. I don't feel like this is a Bills team that should be 5-0. And uh, I said prior to the game last night, and I believe it today, I think the best thing about this team right now is their record. And there's going to be some arguing about, well, the offense has to score more than 20 points. That's correct. But I sit here today, even after a game where the offense turned the ball over 3 times, even when Josh Allen had his worst game so far this season, the offense only scored 20 points. I sit here today still far more concerned about the defense. And that's just where I'm at. And when I look at this offense, they have a all-time future Hall of Famer at quarterback. They have one of the best running backs in the sport. They have arguably the best offensive line in the sport. They have a very strong tight end room, maybe one of the best tight end rooms, 1 to 3 in the entire sport. The wide receiver group, I don't know if any team out there would trade their wide receivers for the Bills. I just don't. If you take money off the table, you take all the salary cap implications off the table, you just take names 1 through 6, I don't know that there's any team that would run to the front of the line to swap wide receivers with the Bills, and that is going to be a problem. When teams that have cornerbacks like the Patriots have can come out and play man coverage across the board and dare you to get your wide receivers open, and when you can't, they they clog up the running lanes for Josh Allen. They did a fantastic job last night, although the stats are going to show that he had a good night running. And they clog up the running lanes for James Cook, and they make it to where you have to improvise on offense. That made Joe Brady have to tap into his bag of tricks last night. And we know on October 5th that these Bills are not going to be overly willing to drop designed runs for Josh Allen. It's a club they have in their bag, but they are more calculated with when they want to play it. They don't necessarily want to do that in the regular season. And when you look at it last night, it was really Dalton and Cade or nothing. There was a long completion to to Joshua Palmer that took 5 seconds to develop. There was almost nothing from Keon Coleman. There was a couple of, I guess he did have the touchdown on that one really nice design play, but there was a couple back shoulder balls that were incomplete, one that was complete. It still feels like they're trying to figure out how to use Keon Coleman, and I sure hope that they don't still believe that the jump balls are his calling card because that's not any receiver's calling card. Joshua Palmer has been an absolute ghost in this offense. They finally started getting Curtis Samuel involved, but it came at the expense of activating Elijah Moore. And all these names I've just gone through are all just guys. These are not difference makers. These are not Stephon Diggs. And I do not believe that the 2025 version of Stephon Diggs is some type of all-time great difference maker. I think he just happened to be the guy who was lined up on 2025 Tre'Davious White last night, and he played a really good game. Stephon Diggs in his current form would be the best wide receiver on the Bills, but I don't know that Stephon Diggs in his current form is even like an alpha number 1 receiver for a 17-week stretch. But good for him. He had a great night, yada, yada, yada. Luka, there's a lot to take in with last night's game. if I were to say my areas of concern about this team are the wide receivers, the cornerbacks, especially now when you factor in Dorian Strong going on to IR, Max Harrison still not being off IR, or let's just say the front seven. We'll just put it into a bucket of its own. Where where do you see the biggest fire? And not necessarily what happened in the game against the Patriots, but as far as projecting forward for the rest of the season and the playoffs, what gives you the biggest, I don't know if we can win a championship with that.
Whew. I will say I'll eliminate the front seven. I will eliminate, and I put that a little bit more just because the defensive line, even for some flack they may have gotten previously and may even get after last night, because you still hear people talking about it felt like Drake May had a lot of time and stuff. And it's like, it didn't. Like, he was able to extend plays sometimes, and the defensive line registered 4 sacks, which any defense will take on any given game. Like, 4 sacks is an efficient day in the sack category and getting to the quarterback. So, and on top of it, I believe there was a good chunk of tackles for loss as well. I think as a defense, they registered 6. I think the defensive line and the front 7 were all 6 of those. So the front 7, I will say no, because they're built also a little bit undersized, as we've talked about, especially at the linebacker size. And that's for reasons, because you would like to believe that this team will have a lead. Now, the other 2 that you brought up, that is an incredibly fine line to me. That is, I feel like you're splitting hairs if you talk about it. And I think that's just because both of them are in the category of, I don't know if we can win a championship with how it currently sits. Where I think the fault will ultimately go and where I lean is still the secondary, and obviously more highlighted by corner, and even more specifically highlighted by corner number 2. But I think there's a serious conversation about the nickel situation as well in the secondary. And I think it just needs to be said that you said it perfectly before we went on air. You're almost getting a 2-down linebacker now at your nickel corner spot. And I think that's a very good way to put it, because you mentioned Stephon Diggs had a great day last night, or great night last night. And it did feel like a good chunk of it was because he was lined up against 27. And I think there was also just a consensus understanding from the Patriots of, hey, first read, first check, understand where 27 is. You're probably throwing the ball in that direction if you're throwing the ball at all. It's spot on, because that's what you do against this defense right now. But even then, there were also other plays happening for the Patriots in the passing game that were up against number 7 for the Bills. And Diggs was slipping away from Taron Johnson. And look, as you put it, 2025, Diggs is not, the dominant beast that he was, but he's still crafty. He's still got that little bit of understanding of how to use his body, how to create space, how to create separation, how to get away from tacklers, just because of his footwork and his understanding, field presence, and all of that stuff. He is still Stephon Diggs. And Taron Johnson looked silly a couple times when having the opportunity to bring him down, or others down in general. And I question what's going on in that coverage space in the secondary with where it currently is, because there's too many question marks and too many things that a team of any respectable level can look at on tape, isolate where the issues are, and go, 47's a good enough corner. You basically you're treating Christian Benford as if he's Richard Sherman, Patrick Peterson, and stuff like that, not because he is those players, but it's like, those teams, mind you, for a long time, it's like, oh, Pat Pete's over there, we're going to throw against Justin Bethel on the other side, because Justin Bethel ain't doing shit. He's a special teamer playing corner 2. Oh, 27's out there, Trey White. He's the guy that's had multiple serious leg injuries and can't run and is worried about over top. And then when you have him pressing, guess what? They're still not smart enough to do over top coverage to really shade the deficiencies that are his ability to cover behind him. So it's so apparent to do something like that when you play, as I said, anyone worth a shit evaluating tape, they're going to attack it. Why I just lean that way, and I just want a little bit of point on the receivers, is you still have Josh Allen. I'm sick of hearing things of like, well, Josh Allen can make people the best that they are. Yes, but also you're still remembering in that fact that it's the best versions of them. It's the best versions of Josh Palmer. It's the best versions of Mac Hollins. It's the best version of Curtis Samuel and all of these other guys, Tyrell Shavers, who's really just not making that much of an impact other than in the run blocking. Like, these are still these role player, just cogs in the machine guys that it's like at certain times you just need an alpha. You just need a guy. You just need someone that's actually going to make that play. And right now, Kincaid kind of feels like that guy because at least he was getting open on a somewhat regular occurrence last night. And outside of him, it was no one else. Shakir felt like he could have been that guy, but now there's also this just lack of desire to have him a little bit more downfield like we saw earlier on in his career. And I don't know if that's just because it's a shift in understanding of how they want to use him and or that he's just had to mold and change his game and maybe he's just not as resourceful downfield. Who the hell knows? Who the hell cares? You just don't have that guy. But at least you still have Josh Allen, who should be able to get more out of guys than what we saw last night. But at the same time, you go back to the secondary for the Bills. It's like, where is the answer? Where is the correction? And none of it's in-house. Maybe it's Maxwell Hairston, but I'm not going to bank myself on a injured corner that had to start the year on IR and needs to ramp himself up and doesn't understand the defense yet. Like, it's unfair to him to have any sort of expectation that he's going to be able to elevate this defense. Would it be great? Would it feel like almost found money? Yes. But I'm already in the mindset of Max Hairston. You ramp him back up. You have him. Hopefully we can get useful snaps. He can get useful experience. But there needs to be something else there that's more dependable because I'm not going to sit here and put the entire weight of success and failure on a rookie first-round pick being the answer because we've talked about it all the time, Josh. You do not draft for the immediate needs. You do not draft for immediate impact. When you get it, and you hopefully get it, especially out of first-round picks, it's great. But it's not a sure thing. It's not an absolute has to happen or else this guy's an absolute bust. It's like those guys are meant to then develop where then year 2 and year 3, that's when you see the star that you drafted for. Like year 1, you should have already had something else there. And if you went into this expecting that right out the gate, that's almost a little bit irresponsible. But then now that you're in the predicament that you are and you see what you're getting out of Trey White in 2025, you've done yourself an injustice that you have no answer inside to get yourself out of it. So you need to do something and do something very fast to correct that out of house. You need to address it elsewhere. So that's why I go with that.
I'm torn because I feel like this offense as presently constructed can still be great more often than not. I do like their identity of running through James Cook, using Josh Allen, and I do think that he can make wide receivers better than they are. But when I look at we've talked about this all season, and I'm actually sick of saying it, but like the reinforcements are coming. I made a tweet last night from our podcast account that Michael Hoyt better be the second coming of Lawrence Taylor, the way that we just keep saying that reinforcements are coming. But and see, I'm getting myself already annoyed by saying it. But okay, there is a number of players coming back. Larry Ogunjobi, Michael Hoyt will help the front seven. Ed Oliver is certainly going to impact the front seven. He's the best defensive tackle on this team. You would expect continued growth from Deion Walker, who has been absolute found money for a 4th-round pick so far. And then TJ Sanders and Landon Jackson, who was active last night. You would hope to get continuous growth out of them, that the December versions of themselves are better than the October versions of themselves, although you always have to also worry about rookies hitting the rookie wall because of how much longer the NFL season is than the college season. Matt Milano should be back at some point in time, although he left again last night with pectoral injury. At some point, you will have, you hope, knock on wood, Milano and Bernard back there at linebacker, and you like what you see out of Shaq Thompson. And then cornerback. You at least have a door number 2 with Max Hairston when he comes back. And you have a door number 3 with Dorian Strong when he comes back. So I look at all of that as to say, I can at least talk myself into on defense that help is on the way. And if I want to pie in the sky it and say Max Harrison is our 1st-round pick, we should be counting on him to be great. And Ed Oliver looked fantastic week 1. And Greg Rousseau looked to be back last night. And Matt Milano, when he comes back, is still a top linebacker. I don't know if I believe any of that, but that's where I can get myself to. And Michael Hoyt maybe is going to upgrade that 3rd edge rusher. But I look at the wide receiver situation, And I can just already see when the Chiefs throw out McDuffie and their cornerback situation, they're going to be able to play man coverage at the same level the Patriots did. And what are the Bills going to do? And I look at what's it going to look like in January when when we're going against teams like the Broncos now, who are good, and can this team beat teams like that with their current wide receivers? And I just don't know. So I think the path for this team right now to win a Super Bowl is either A, the offense is fantastically elite, and then the defense is middle of the road, or you find a way to make a trade and get the defense to good, and the offense is very good, and that can also win a championship. Right now, I think the offense is very good, and the defense is very bad. Not very bad. I think the defense is bad. So it kind of just depends which one do you want to lean into, but they absolutely have to make a move, Luka. Let's talk about this game. From a Bills perspective, is there any one player? I know we're gonna get into game balls and game checks and all that, and I think Tre'Davious White's probably the one that we're gonna harp on the most. But outside of him, is there any one Bills player that you look at and you say, "Man, this guy really, really had a tough night." And when you look at his performance specifically, this is why the Bills probably found themselves on the losing end more so than player XYZ.
Ooh, if we want, I almost want to try as I'm going through this to take out Tre'Davious White because it's the obvious answer. It's kind of like most of the times we're doing game balls. Who's the game ball guy? It's Josh Allen most of the time, right? So taking him out of this, it feels as if it's harder, as I've mentioned, to really highlight anyone else on the defensive side. I think Taron Johnson has a conversation for it to be there. I mentioned already where he had a few key missed tackles that you would like to see someone that you believe is to the caliber of who he is to make. Man, I feel like I just circle back to we talked about it last week, I know for sure, and it's definitely been talked around. I circle back to the running back situation, and I circle back specifically to Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, of course, where these guys, when they're on the field right now, are just taking up space. And when I see 26 and 22 out there, I mean, last night I caught myself multiple times to the buddy I was standing next to, and I would make a comment to him, and I was like, Ray Davis is out there. Like, what are we doing? Like, and then you see Ty Johnson out there, and it's like, what are we doing? These are wasted snaps to me. Like, when I see these two guys standing there next to Josh Allen or behind Josh Allen, it already to me is a wasted snap. It reminds me of how I felt, being in Madden sim leagues, years and years ago, and I'd get yelled at about not running the ball enough. So I was quite literally wasting snaps to just make sure I had registered carries so that I wasn't getting yelled at by commissions. Like, that's how I felt, the level of inefficiency and lack of care and desire that was in there when I would see Ty Johnson and Ray Davis in the backfield carrying the ball. Like, I just, if these guys are that inefficient with this, if Ty Johnson's out there, I will happily accept that it's a tell that we're passing the ball because he's borderline useless in the run game. When Ray Davis is out there, James Cook and Ty Johnson better be hurt. That's how I feel about it now at this point in time. Ray Davis, for everything we liked what we saw out of him his rookie year, it is everything that's as frustrating as it is with what we're seeing right now out of his utilization. It's like, what the hell happened between the somewhat glimmer of hope and promise we saw from rookie Ray Davis to what the F are we seeing now out of 22 in the backfield, where it feels that wasteful and that useless to do anything with him in that category? I just, they are the two that I sit there and I circle right now outside of the obvious Trey White, that it's just like, I don't care if James Cook is not the guy you want to see out there. When the going gets tough and stuff, I want to see James Cook getting 85, 90% of the snaps. He is coming off the field because he needs a breather. That's it. We are at the point in time now where you don't have an alternative option anymore, clearly. And it should be Saquon Barkley checking out, and that's why you see AJ Dillon out there once in a while, or that's why you see whatever. It's like, I don't effing care. I understand James Cook is human and he needs to breathe. That's good. Like, get a breather, get some water, blah, blah, blah. I can accept that. But that better be the only effing reason James Cook is off the field. Bottom line. I don't care if his pass pro is shit, if it is or not. I don't care what it is. He is your only dynamic threat out of the backfield now. He's the only one worth a crap to any defense that looks at you. And that's the bottom line. You are not putting out packages to run with Ray Davis. You are definitely not putting packages out to run with Ty Johnson. I'd hope to effing God. And if Ty Johnson's out there in obvious passing situations, I will accept it, because if that's because he's better at pass pro and then understanding space and getting out there for a check down bailout for Allen, fine. I will accept that resource out of Ty Johnson as well. I will not accept Ray Davis in any sort of capacity at that anymore in time. We're done with this. You paid James Cook to be the guy. Be the guy. That's bottom line. Simple as that. 1 + 1 = 2, Josh. That is as simple as it gets at this point in time. And last night, I found myself rolling my eyes looking at it. Like I said, again, it's like, I'm done with it. I know the conversation's like, oh, we need to be getting more out of these guys. It's like, no, fuck that. Don't take James Cook. Don't take 4 off the field anymore, because you don't have a better option. You didn't draft a potential another dynamic threat in there that you could have on a day 3. Like, I wonder what you could have used better out of your 4th round pick when Landon Jackson's finally there, when maybe you could have done something else and get a dynamic guy. Like, yesterday's not exactly a great example, but I would say, like, hey, a Cam Scatteroo would be better in the backfield for this team right now. Like, you didn't do anything to try to create a little bit more dynamic playmakers in the backfield, and you're actually regressing with what you had compared to last year outside of James Cook. So just be done with it. Except that James Cook's now paid, and he's now paid to be the guy, and lean into it. Like, just, I'm done with the alternative. I'm done with last night's one in the many, and I feel like it will continue to be that way throughout the season, where it's like, these guys aren't going to do shit for you. They are backups. They are depth pieces for a reason. Just let them be that. And James Cook needs to be that guy.
He does. I think the Bills are going to have to find a way to reduce his snaps, because I don't want him wearing down by the time the season starts. But that's a Ray Davis problem. They have to find somebody they're willing to bring in. Algier comes in for Bijan Robinson. Get used to those names next week, by the way, folks. And you see all around the league, Ollie Gordon comes in for Devon Achane. You see Devin Singletary come in for Cam Scatteroo. It doesn't matter what team. AJ Dillon comes in for Saquon Barkley. But the Bills right now, they're getting so little out of Ray Davis that every time he gets a carry, it feels like a donated down. I don't know what happened there. It shouldn't be that hard to find a running back. I certainly am not begging the Bills to go out and spend a resource on a running back. My God. But I'm with you. That was incredibly frustrating. I wanted to say something else. So in recent weeks, if you criticize the Bills offense and you point out really the criticism of the Bills offense has been at wide receiver, because as we mentioned, they have an all-time great quarterback. They have a very, very good running back who's one of the best in the league. They have one of the best tight end rooms in the sport, 1 to 3, one of the best offensive line units in the sport. That's a great foundation. The wide receiver group is what leaves everybody wanting more. When you say something along the lines of, man, the Bills could use another wide receiver, you get immediate pushback on Twitter from people saying, oh, they scored 30 points a week, bro. What offense is fine. Wide receiver is not a need. I'm trying not to get mad, but I just want to point out, when you look at those 30 points a week that the Bills have scored, they scored 40 on the Ravens. The Ravens give up 35 points a game. And that includes a game where they gave up 17 points to Joe Flacco and the Browns. Other than that, everybody's putting up 40 on the Ravens. Okay. The New York Jets, they put up 30 on them. The Jets are giving up 31.4 points per game. Okay. Scroll down a little bit further. That's 32 and 31 in the league, by the way. You go all the way down to 27. There you have the Miami Dolphins. They give up 29 points a game. The Bills got 30 on them. Bryce Young put up 27 on the Dolphins yesterday. So when you start adding it up, it's like everybody wanted to get super excited about what the Patriots and the Broncos did last week. Now, granted, they both knocked off undefeated teams this week, so good for them. But it's like, okay, they're playing against the Bengals and the Panthers. It's context. The Dolphins are the laughing stock defensively. The Cowboys have been a laughing stock defensively. You want to get right, play the Cowboys. I just named 3 of the 5 worst defenses in points per game, and they've all been on the Bills' schedule. So who does that leave us with? That leaves us with the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are, you don't have to scroll down much further than that. They're 24th in the league. They gave up 27 points per game. And that factors in the 14 they gave up yesterday to the Giants, and the Bills scored 30 on them. So, yes, is 30 points a game impressive by the Bills up until yesterday? Absolutely. Is the quality of competition suggesting that that's probably where they should be given what the other teams have done? I think so. I don't know that we have enough evidence right now to say this is going to be a great offense. Well, 2 things we know. One, Josh Allen had an amazing season last year that won him the MVP. The offensive line is great. I don't know that we can just assume that this offense is going to continue to roll, because now we're in year 2 of this particular iteration of the offense, and this wide receiver group does not scare anybody. So I do wonder now, I know the Saints names are the popular ones, Shaheed, and then you have Chris Olave, or could you go get like a DJ Moore from Chicago, just somebody to open up this offense? I have my doubts, Luka, that Brandon Beane, after all the bravado he showed this offseason with that rant on WGR about, like, you guys doubted us when we drafted Josh Allen, and now you're doubting us about wide receiver. And he also said in that rant, by the way, we signed Joshua Palmer. We think he's a darn good receiver. When is that going to happen? Because he doesn't even have 200 yards on the season, by the way. Um, I do wonder if the Bills have the appetite to make that move, but I just can't get over this fear I have in the back of my head that when they start playing good defenses, and I don't know when that's going to be in the regular season. They have the Chiefs in a couple of weeks, but they have the Falcons who are average and the Panthers who are below average before then. But when the games are the money games, are they going to have the same success, or are they, gasp, a product of their schedule right now? Where do you fall, Luka, on the Bills offense specifically?
On the Bills offense specifically, it does feel as if it's everything you've heard Orlovsky say for years and years and years. You are way too, and Sims as well. You are way too 17 dependent. You move the way Josh Allen moves. And look, the offense moves as Patrick Mahomes moves. The Ravens, look, I get they have Derrick Henry, but still, they move to the beat of Lamar Jackson. That's what happens when you have great quarterbacks. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, because, I mean, the best thing you have is when they're not with Joe Burrow, you get what you're getting right now. So there is that dynamic to it. But at the same time, what those guys are saying is way more concerning than it feels like maybe Bills fans truly recognize, because to everything you're pointing out, and even what I had said in reference earlier, where it's like you're getting the best out of what these guys are. And what you just saw last night is basically getting the best out of what you will see out of this receiving group. If that's not a red flag to you, I don't know what is. I mean, when Dalton Kincaid is the only guy getting open on a somewhat regular basis, one, finally Dalton Kincaid's having his breakout. It's potentially due to him being maybe as healthy as he's ever been since becoming a pro, as well as just he's starting to truly understand the ticks of the NFL. Like, it could be a multitude of things, but that's what happens. And you're talking about first round draft picks. You see the splashes of their first year stuff. You're not depending on them for immediate production, and you're not getting your Brock Bowers all the time, but you just pulling another tight end. But you want to see the flashes and then let them develop. And then we saw a little bit of a regression last year, but we've learned that potentially it could have been a little bit handcuffed due to health. And maybe that was actually more than what we believed it was. And now we're seeing what it is in a more healthy environment. Knock on wood, please, for the love of God. So when you're seeing that, though, and then your Shakir utilization is the way it is, and you bring up Josh Palmer, and it's like, I want someone to throw the separation metrics at me about Josh Palmer one more time on Twitter. I want to see that stuff. I want you to defend him as much as possible, because you like it. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I'm not trying to call people out, but at the same effing time, he is Josh Palmer. This is what you get out of Josh Palmer. This is it. This is what every Chargers fan in the world, one that you and I are close with and stuff, like they knew it. Like, this is Josh Palmer. There will be a game coming up at some point, Josh, where Josh Palmer finally shows himself and really, big touchdown, maybe even breaks 100 yards and stuff. And then it's going to go back to what it is. Like, that is Josh Palmer. And it's not anything against him as a player, but he is what he is. And that's also okay. And that's why you paid him the way that you did. You like, you're getting the best out of these guys than what they are. Keon Coleman's the only one that it feels like, you could potentially be getting more upside out of him, but also how much more are you truly going to get out of it? Like, from what you're seeing, and maybe they just don't believe in what they're getting, or they don't quite know what they're getting. You mentioned that earlier as well. Like, they don't know how to quite tap into it to get a little bit more out of him. And essentially you're just getting that guy who can truly be trusted when covered up. And Allen has that trust in him to truly just high point him a little bit more and just see what he can do for you every once in a while. The receivers in this offense just it is 17 to figure it the F out. It is up to him. And then every once in a while, you do have those games where the offensive line and James Cook are able to boss you enough that it isn't. And that's the saving grace of it all. And you need to figure it out more often than not, it feels like, because of your receiving core. But I'm with you in the point of when a defense worth its weight in gold is looking at this offense, there's nothing to scare them outside of 17 and potentially 4 with the offensive line. You keep it inside the tackles. If the Bills are able to keep the offense as efficient as possible inside the tackles, you're going to have a long day. If you need to start having them do things outside of the tackles and really make sure they have to throw the ball while also Josh Allen's not able to run around on you, what's to be scared of? What's the problem? What do we need to do? Just man up, figure it out. They're not going to separate from us. Man on man, call out your number. It's like pickup basketball. It's like, I'll guard him. I got him. I got him. I got him. What are those guys going to do? Nothing. They're not going to separate on you. It's going to be up to 17 to break things down, extend plays. It's up to the quarterback, Josh, to create time for receivers to eventually separate just because the defenders are winded. That is not a good sign. That is bad. That's very, very bad. You can't depend on your quarterback to buy you enough time to create your separation. You need to be better than that if you're any receiver in the NFL. So I'm with you in the sense of it does feel like what we've seen so far is a little bit more of a product of the opponent rather than the hope of what can potentially come, because you look down the line. I mean, the Falcons defense is pretty hit or miss. Like, some weeks they look great and other weeks they look just like the Falcons defense. And then, I mean, after that, you have the Chiefs coming into town at some point in time. And we know that their defense is, I mean, it's something, especially with the way it's coached. You have other teams. I mean, the Eagles down the road, just going off the top of my head. I mean, the Steelers are the Steelers, of course, and you got to go to them. I mean, the Browns, I'm not sitting here saying that they're going to lose at Cleveland, but that defense, I mean, is it's one of the best defenses in the league. It's just, unfortunately, they have, Dylan Gabriel as their option right now. And if Dylan Gabriel has a couple bad games, they're going to the mime himself, Shadur. Like, that's their downfall. But that defense is, I would expect that game right now in time with where this current form is. I expect the Cleveland Browns to absolutely shut this offense down. Like, it will not surprise me one bit if the Bills struggle to get 17 points. That's not good. Like, that's a great defense, but that's also just not good. If you're the Bills, that's not good. That's not good enough. It's not good. And you got by against very subpar teams and subpar defenses. Now the going's about to get tough. And I earlier on, reinforcements are coming. Michael Hoyt better be an all-pro player. And Ed Oliver coming off a foot injury that's keeping him out now 5 weeks. He better plug and play as 100% health all of a sudden and be an all-pro player again, which is not realistic. Like, the reinforcements aren't coming for this offense. So now you're playing against better teams where your defense needs to step the F up. What tells you that this mid-ass defense is going to step up when the offense is struggling continuously? Yeah, you played the Saints, you played the Dolphins, you played the Jets. I'm not going to ramble on anymore here, but you played these subpar defenses. Now you finally went up against one that was worth its weight. And, Christian Gonzalez is out there. Marcus Jones is out there. Like, guys are out there that are dogs. and you got locked up. You created they created havoc, and you couldn't do anything about it. That is something that will continue with how things are going, and do not expect this offense to be 30 plus points here and out. And I'm not calling out Bean or anything, but at the same time, like, what do you have to say yourself for what this is based on your words earlier on? Like, this is what the reality feels like, more so than what you tried to paint the picture of. This feels more real. This feels like exactly what is expected from what you've done for this team talent wise on that offense.
I kind of want to call out B. Now he doesn't care what I have to say, but the the Chiefs have kind of taken a similar approach, right? Like they have said, we have this all-time great quarterback. We're gonna put resources on defense, and we're gonna just assume the offense will be okay because we have Mahomes and we have Kelsey and we have Andy Reid calling plays. Like they have better in-house foundation than the Bills do. But then they've also taken Xavier Worthy in the first round and Rashee Rice in the third round, and they hit a home run with Pacheco in the seventh round for the first few years of his career. And Creed Humphrey was a smash pick in the draft. But that's where the spotlight gets on Bean. Okay, Brandon, you want to save some resources on offense. Everybody eats. We're going to trade away Stephon Diggs' massive contract, and then we're going to have all these draft picks. We're going to spend first, second, third, fourth round draft picks on defense, defense, defense. 3 of those on defensive line. You're going to go out and you're going to spend free agent money on Michael Hoyt, Joey Bosa, and Larry Ogunjobi. I can't listen to the excuse that Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi aren't here yet, because that was a choice you made. Nobody put a gun to your head and said, when you got the information right before he signed the contract, that you still had to honor the contract with Larry Ogunjobi. And you were well aware of Michael Hoyt's suspension when you signed him to that deal. So I'm not going to give you a pass for the resources you allocated this offseason when the defense is really underwhelming, when the entire focus of the offseason was to improve the defense. And Luka and I sat here until we were blue in the face saying, hey, rookies are cool, but if you're counting on rookies, it's a faulty proposition. Well, hey, here we are. Where would this team be without Deion Walker? TJ Sanders does not look like he's ready to help this team anytime soon. Dorian Williams and Max Harrison are on IR, and they are your 2 options to hope for life after Tre'Davious White, who can't cover his own shadow right now. So that's where we're at with this defense. And there are some positive. Cole Bishop looks like he's growing as a player. Greg Rousseau looks like, as of last night, maybe he's finally coming back healthy from that bone bruise. I do not like what I've seen from Terrell Bernard this season. I don't like what I've seen from Christian Benford this season. The best thing for Taron Johnson is how awful Tre'Davious White has played, because it hasn't let anybody notice how awful he's played. And then Taylor Rapp is like the whipping boy on defense. I think he's probably the 3rd or 4th best player out there. That's where we're at. And so, yeah, Ed Oliver, Larry Ogunjobi, Michael Hoyt, they're all coming. Max Harrison, Dorian Strong, probably coming at some point. What is it all going to amount to? I don't know. But for the sake of the GM, who spent the entire offseason telling us, I don't need wide receivers, don't doubt me like you did when I drafted Josh Allen, going full bravado mode on WGR when they weren't even challenging him in that interview. They literally asked him how he thought the draft went. He decided to go on this. I'm going to pound my chest about how great the wide receivers are on this team. And, oh, I got Joshua Palmer. Did you guys all forget that? And we needed to attack defense. Okay. How's that going? And you know what? Do I have to still wait 2 more weeks when Hoyt and Ogunjobi are back to judge that? Because yeah, I think we all agree this Bills team's going to make the playoffs. They're going to have days where they overwhelm their opponents. Although there's been a couple opponents so far that we thought they were going to overwhelm, and it didn't really happen. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be probably in the tournament, and it's probably going to come down to a play or two against the Kansas City Chiefs. And who on this defense do you trust to make that play right now? I have a hard time coming up with one. Maybe it's Joey Bosa. If he's healthy by then, that's the reason you got him at such a discount, by the way, is chances are he may not be. But that's where my frustration comes in. I felt like I just got a lot off of my chest, Luka. But I'm tired of this. We don't need a wide receiver thing. And Brandon Beane threw gas on the fire this offseason, and he put himself out there. And the Bills couldn't wait to continue to remind us of that when they put out the embeds and on Hard Knocks, when they replayed that interview. And you had Rich Eisen on his show talking about how I like Brandon Beane. I like his track record. The one thing I know, that's great in this organization is the quarterback. That's the one thing I know. He is Super Bowl standard. The head coach, I think, is pretty good. I think the head coach is pretty good. I don't if you ask me who deserves more blame right now out of McDermott and Bean, I think, as to borrow a phrase from Parcells, I don't think it's the chef. I think it's the person buying the groceries. That's just my opinion. If the meal is not up to standard, I think right now it's a lack of quality groceries. Now, will we ever be able to know if Kyer Elam could have been a top-notch cornerback if he was in, say, a better defensive scheme and they developed him better? There's no way to ever know that. But I like Sean McDermott's track record as a head coach. I think he's a pretty good coach. I don't think he's the best coach in the league. I think he's in the top 10 of NFL coaches. I have big question marks about Brandon Beane, his evaluation of talent, his allocation of draft resources, and the way that he just continues to pour valuable upon valuable resources into the defensive line and continues to have this defensive line be the reason why this team can't get quarterbacks down in the postseason, despite the fact that they're playing teams like the Bengals, who are down 3 starters in Buffalo, or they're playing the Chiefs, who have an offensive line that can't even function against the Texans and the Eagles, but do whatever they want to against the Bills in the AFC Championship game. And all he does is pound his chest over how good he thinks his wide receivers are. So tired of it. Hopefully it turns around. Hopefully I look stupid for saying all of this, but I think the spotlight is squarely on Brandon Beane. Luka, we are at 50 minutes into this show. Let's go ahead and do game balls and game checks. Who deserves your game ball for the Bills' 23-20 loss to the New England Patriots?
I think the answer is pretty obvious here. I think the answer is Dalton Kincaid, simply put. Dalton Kincaid was the only legitimate regular threat to the Patriots, and the Patriots didn't feel like they had an answer. It felt especially apparent where I was at a point sitting there when I saw Dalton Kincaid line, in wherever he was in the formation. I wanted to say lined up, and then all of a sudden I doubted it. I don't know why. When I saw Dalton Kincaid out there, when I saw 86 out there, and 31 was across from him in some capacity, that appeared to be the matchup defensively for the Patriots on Dalton Kincaid, I was very confident that Dalton Kincaid was going to be open in some capacity as long as it was a pass. Like that is how good I felt about Dalton Kincaid last night. And spoiler alert, it came to fruition pretty good. So I think last night was a true, well, not eye opener, but true showcase to what we hopefully will continue to get out of Dalton Kincaid now as a well-rounded pro. And if Dalton Kincaid continues to do what he did last night against all other teams throughout the season and continues to progress and be a dynamic threat from the tight end position for this offense, he will be getting a second contract this offseason. If this is the Dalton Kincaid we continue to get, Josh, I feel very confident and comfortable thinking Dalton Kincaid deserves a second contract. Keep this going because you need something else at that tight end position, because also you paid money to a Dawson Knox guy who, I need something different, and I need what I'm seeing out of Dalton Kincaid. So, in a game that was a little bit frustrating and honestly surprising to me that I'm picking an offensive player, he was truly the one thing outside of Josh Allen that the Bills had to create plays and move chains and do things efficiently that I loved seeing the ball going his way continuously. He had 6 targets. He had 6 catches. He went over 100 yards. The next closest receiver was Khalil Shakir with 6 catches on 9 targets for 45 yards. Like, Dalton, if it wasn't for Dalton Kincaid, this could have been a hell of a lot worse. So, yeah, Dalton Kincaid to me is the clear answer for game ball.
This is the game you've been wanting to see from Dalton Kincaid since the Bills drafted him. This is the why he's here. When the receivers can't get open, when they're having a matchup against cornerback, and not that we're all just counting on having receivers that couldn't get open, but when you're having a day where the receivers can't beat the coverage scheme, Kincaid should be a matchup nightmare, and he was, and good for him. Credit to him. I agree with everything you're saying about Dalton Kincaid. He looks like a different person this year. And then I want to echo something that Joe Marino says. A lot of it has to do with the fact of how much better of a blocker he is. He's never going to be Lee Smith. I don't know that he'll ever be Dawson Knox, but he's effective at blocking enough that he's not playing himself off the field in running situations. By the way, okay, another vent session. Chris Collinsworth last night said this multiple times, Luka, and it's like he was saying it as a compliment. And I was just losing my mind. The Bills are one of these. I know we're in game balls and game checks and ADHD is kicking in, but the Bills are one of these teams that just don't care about predictability. When they're in the shotgun, they're going to pass the ball 70% of the time, but when they're under center, they're going to run the ball 70% of the time, and they don't care that they're predictable. They're just trusting themselves to be good at what they do. I don't know that I want my team getting that compliment. I kind of want my team to be a little bit less predictable because I don't know. Christian Gonzalez and some of those guys on New England are pretty good at football too. And if they know what you're going to do based on the percentages, that bothered me. I was glad that you were in the stadium, didn't have to hear that. I didn't think Collinsworth had a bad game by any means, but that one kept
That's
driving
tough.
me nuts.
That's tough.
Come on. My game ball is going to go to Greg Rousseau. I thought I felt him a lot last night, not only on his sack, but in run support. He was holding down the edge. I would have liked to see him line up on Will Campbell a little bit more. I think that's a matchup he could have exploited. For some reason, it was more Joey Bosa over there. But I do think that as you start finding pathways for this defense to get better, one of those is Greg Rousseau getting fully healthy from that bone bruise and ramping up and becoming, as close to a game wrecker as he's capable of being. We know he's not Myles Garrett. We know he's not TJ Watt, but can he be a second tier level edge presence with Joey Bosa? And then you get Ed Oliver back and you continue to get what you've seen out of Deion Walker. And you can make the case that with those ifs, there's a lot of ifs there. The defensive line could start to become a strength of this team. So I was encouraged by that. Quickly, a couple guys that deserve praise. Matt Prater, again, just nails. He's had one bad miss in 4 weeks. He had that kick that gave the Bills a chance to play defense and extend the game, the 47-yarder that just went right through the pipes. Just an absolute find for Brandon Beane. I just got done railing on him for the receivers, but to find Matt Prater on the street and have him be as reliable as he's been has been really nice to see. Who else did I want to call out as a there was somebody else and I can't remember it now. Certainly wasn't going to be anybody on the coaching staff. Um, I thought Cole Bishop was strong last night. Again, I think it's tough to play safety in this scheme when you have such slow-footed cornerbacks that you're trying to cover up for. Oh, Shaq Thompson. Shaq Thompson, I'm not overly eager to see him come off the field, even when Milano's healthy. At this point in time, I would fully endorse a part-time Matt Milano role for the rest of the regular season, if nothing else, to keep him healthy for the playoffs. And Shaq Thompson is a bit of an enforcer out there, and I think this team needs a lot of that. They don't have a lot of enforcers. So that's that. Game check, Luka. This should be a little bit easier. Who gets your game check for the? Oh, by the way, I almost want to give my game ball to Diggs, but I didn't do it. Um, I thought this was a good closure on the Diggs situation, though. I liked his comments a lot after the game, kind of talking about the side eye photo that of him and Josh Allen. He said it was just like a really badly timed photo, and he was just kind of having a moment with himself that he was just looking at Josh Allen like that's my guy, that's one of my best friends, and it was just weird to see him in another team, and he regrets that that photo came out the way it did. I thought Diggs was, we said a lot about Diggs when he was here. We were both ready for him to leave when it was time to go. I thought last night was good closure for Diggs. I liked the embrace between him and Allen, both telling each other, I love you at midfield. I thought Diggs handled himself well in the post-game press conference. He's never going to be my cup of tea as a person totally, but I thought that was good closure on this. And I think we can all kind of move on now. We don't have to make a big deal of it every time the Bills play the Patriots. And he had the last laugh, at least for last night. Who gets your game check, Luka?
Game check is an interesting one. So while you were even doing your game ball, I actually have been sitting here trying to figure it out. I even finished the game all the way through to this moment. I wasn't sure the direction to go. And then it clicked like a light bulb. It was an immediate switch, Josh. It goes back to a conversation we had just before we hit record. It's not a player. This game check award goes to Bobby Babbage. What the F are we doing at this point in time? Like, what is the plan? What is the idea? What are you trying to do? Last night to me, and I would love to, I'm not at all 22, we say it all the time, stuff like that. I love saying it just because it feels like in this space, you almost have to define yourself. Do you watch all 22 or not? But I don't care for that. I'm okay with just broadcast and blah, blah, blah. But sitting in the stands, there was a moment where in the second half, early second half, I recognized that this team for a drive just decided to send blitz every snap. Just whatever look it was, it felt like it was, whether it was just single high safety, man coverage blitz, or just straight up zero blitzing. Like Whatever it was just send pressure, send the heat, send the heat. And then the very next drive, we went back to our soft zone coverage. Like it just went right back to it. And it was, it reminds me of playing your average college football, college football or Madden player, where it's just like randomly they're just throwing man blitzing at you because they're trying something different. They're just testing this out. There's no plan. There's no idea. There's no scheme to it. It's just you know what? We haven't shown them this look yet. This will throw them off. Might even be able to buy us, a punt or, a short series for the other team. And I believe in this case that did work for that particular drive I'm mentioning. It worked. This is the NFL and you are a Super Bowl caliber team. I don't need to feel like my defensive coordinator's up there throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks mid-game. I want an idea. I want a plan. I want to understand that what they're trying to do is truly for a reason. And right now, at this point in time, and I can't believe in a game where I actually felt better about the defense and the offense, I am sitting here absolutely thrashing the defensive coordinator. But I believe it's absolutely deservingly so. I think the personnel choices and stuff, I don't think that's solely a McDermott decision to have Trey White out there. I think there's a comfortability between McDermott and Babbage where they have these conversations. I believe that they believe together that what they have out there is good enough to do whatever Babbage is trying to achieve from a defensive coordinator perspective. But what the hell is the plan? What's the idea? What's the identity? Is the identity of just, hey, pray to God we get some turnovers like it has been for a while now? Because that's what it feels like it is, and it's not going to work. As you mentioned perfectly earlier in this episode, if your model and idea, especially from a defensive perspective, is creating turnovers and winning the turnover battle to ultimately win games, that is like picking the number on a roulette wheel and praying to God it works. I won't go number, picking third of the, numbers that it's going to hit, or picking color and stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's an under 50% success rate. Like, and that's, I'm being optimistic with that number in reality. Like, if you are trying to depend on turnovers to find defensive success and win games as a team, you are failing. You need to have an idea, an identity, an understanding of what you're trying to do from a scheme perspective defensively that will cause questions and confuse the opposition. And as we've talked about, and as it feels like anyone turns on the tape of this defense right now and they understand exactly what they need to do on Monday, and it will work out on the following Sunday, that is pathetic. You have no inkling of understanding of what you're trying to do. And the answers, by the way, every time Babbage opens his mouth, are even more concerning. I don't understand what his ideas are. I don't understand what's going on in his head that he believes is the reason for the turnaround will happen. Like, I have no faith in Bobby Babbage right now. None. And at a certain point in time, Josh, it feels like a Dorsey-like firing might come for Babbage if things continue to progress in a way where it's like McDermott needs a scapegoat, get him out of the house. I'm going to run this defense again. That will be the message sent to turn things around, because I need something out here that will correct whatever. And at this point in time, I'm all for it. Like, I'm done with what we're seeing right now. I'm done with seeing just a throw it out there approach. Throw mud at the wall, see what sticks. Hopefully this mud that I just threw isn't a pile of shit, mind you, and now my hands are dirty. Like, that's the Bobby Babbage defense we're seeing right now. And all of the talk was about how promising it was when he was first promoted and how it felt good. And I was one of those that I was like, I like the idea of what Babbage could potentially do, because what we saw from him at a position coach level, it ain't working as a DC. Just bottom line, it's not working. I don't think he has the brain and understanding to do it at this moment in time. I want him to prove me wrong. I want it to work. I don't want someone to be a scapegoat for a Super Bowl caliber team. But I mean, we are on the absolute tip of this scale going, in my opinion. So for this game being the way it was, even in a better outcome for a defense, I still sit here and I go, what the F are we doing from a planning level? And that goes to the defensive coordinator. So Bobby Babbage, game check, bud.
Yeah. Have not seen a lot out of Bobby Babich. We're super excited about him as a linebacker coach. I would not be surprised if at some point McDermott takes over play calling. I mean, why not at this point in time? It's time for something to change. I'm gonna go with Tre'Davious White. I hate doing it. I don't take joy in pounding on Tre'Davious White every single week on this show. He's not a starting caliber player in the NFL. I don't think he's a backup level player in the NFL right now, and he's being asked to man half the side of the field for the Bills as far as wide receivers go, and it's not going well. And the sooner Max Harrison or Dorian Strong can come back and start giving the Bills an idea of what that looks like, would be ideal. Especially if Max Harrison can get on the field for a couple games before the trade deadline to give Brandon Beane an idea of how aggressive he should be. But Tre'Davious White, another really tough night for the Bills, and unfortunately, they don't have the horses around him to hide a cornerback that's playing at the level he is, and he was picked on a lot tonight. All right, Luka, we get to lick our wounds for a little bit longer, and then we'll get ready for a Monday night tilt at 7 p.m. against the Atlanta Falcons. And next week's edition of Bills Chat, have we talked about this? I assume we're just going to record on Sunday like always. It'll be a pregame show.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
absolutely do a pregame.
Pregame show for the Atlanta Falcons, and I think there's still enough to stew on for these Bills Patriots games. I think we should go live again this week, and I think it'll be a blend of we're going to go live every week. I'm just being dramatic. I think it'll be a blend of kind of still getting over this Patriots loss. And the thing about Wednesday this week is there's not going to be any Bills practice because they won't start practicing till Thursday because of the Monday night game. We'll start to look ahead to the Falcons game, but I do think there'll be some big picture conversations needing to have. Maybe we'll have a Rashid Shaheed trade to talk about, Luka. You a big fan of
If we get Rashid Shaheed, I'm just gonna say, low key, I will be very excited. Just
go,
one, I've
going to
loved
the
saying
ship?
his loved. Well, I've loved saying his name for years, and he's always been a long shot touchdown bet back in the day. Like I
Mhm.
was like, Rashid Shaheed could just randomly have a 90-yard touchdown. Which, spoiler alert, that did happen again this week. He would just be a fun, dynamic, different style receiver in this room. That it's
Mhm.
like, thank you. Thank you for trying something else at a
Mhm.
cost-friendly level. That's like, we need to do something else. It would remind me of like the Deontay Hardy signing.
Mhm.
Funny enough, also from the Saints, but it would feel just like, hey, you're trying to bring something different into the house, a dynamic, get him in the open field, get him downfield, push the ball, whatever it is. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, let's finally go trade for disgruntled receiver AJ Brown. I don't think the Bills have the ability to do something like that for a multitude of reasons. And I also don't think they would want to bring in an AJ Brown anyways, for not because of who he is as a player. I think they probably want to steer clear of individuals that'll make Instagram posts on Mondays when they don't get their catches and targets. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I would love to see something like that. That'd be great. And also, fun fact, Josh, side note on the show, I think I'm going to start getting back in the Sabres chat pod a little bit.
Ooh.
Season starts Thursday. It's a household rivalry, if anyone isn't aware. Wife's a big Rangers fan. I'm, of course, a lovely Sabres fan. Nothing like kicking open the season with me and my wife being at each other's throat for a hockey game. So that'll be fun, but not literally.
So
Okay,
no, not that, but you were okay. So we'll end on a funny note. There was they mentioned this couple last night on the broadcast that the wife's water broke during Bills Ravens in the early fourth quarter,
oh right, yes, I
and
heard
they
about that
stuck
story.
around and watched the rest of the game before going to the hospital. Now, look, I am a diehard Bills fan.
No
I
chance.
consider myself a fanatic. I draw the line at, honey, I know your water just broke, but the Bills are playing the Ravens right now. We're going to have to delay that trip to the hospital.
Uh, Especially with how that game was going. I don't know when it happened, but
Yeah.
there would have been every excuse and reason to be like,
Oh, yeah.
we're getting out of here. We're about to have our child.
And then you thank your kid later for coming to save you from having to watch the rest of it. And then it turns out that, hey, it was a miracle. I don't know. But yeah, I did not know that she deserved the standing ovation she got from even Chris Collinsworth and oh gosh, Mike Tirico were like, we don't endorse not going to the hospital when your water breaks, by the way. We love the commitment to watching our program, but that's not something we endorse.
Yeah. No, but I can promise if fingers crossed, mind you, based on our predicament, that does not happen on Thursday. But we if at a later point in time we're at a Sabres game and that were to happen, or a Bills game for that matter, in this case, no. There's certain things where you do need to draw that line. Not even in the sand, Josh. You're drawing a hard ass line. It's like no. We are going. It doesn't matter what you're doing, what the importance is. I don't care. That comes first. But I mean, props to the commitment to those people. That is a level that's a whole nother level of whatever. But Thursday will be fun with us sitting in the stands for yet another Sabres Rangers game, and it will be friendly banter. I know I said at each other's throat. Of course, that is metaphoric. We will be very cordial and everything. And for the love of God, hopefully the Sabres win that game. But we will see.
I'm excited Sabres Chat's coming back because our hockey podcast has been on ice for the off season.
Brutal.
All right. Well, anyway, for Luka, I am Josh McCarty. We will talk to you on Wednesday for Bills Chat Live. I'll be back on Monday night for Bills Chat Halftime. And Luka and I'll be back Monday morning to break down everything, preview Bills Falcons. I'll get their name right by Monday. Falcons in depth. There's a couple scary running backs there that Luka's going to prepare us for. And hopefully the Bills can get to 5-1. We will talk to you next time on Bills Chat.